I think I'm most proud about, obviously, the longevity. Obviously, I've done things that no other Brit's done before, but now I've also done things with skiing as an older ski racer. I've done things that nobody in the world has ever done before by winning at 35. I'm ready for a new challenge. I'm ready to wake up in the morning and get after something else. I don't want to rush into something and 6 months down the line think this is not for me. So definitely dabble in a few things, 100% stay in the sport with some kind of mentorship coaching role and take it from there really while being a dad and a husband.
Great Britain into gold medal position.
Our guest today is one of the most remarkable underdog stories the World Cup has ever seen. A racer shaped not by glaciers or Alpine academies, but by grit, resilience, and a refusal to quit. Dave Ryding. Welcome to Alpine Pulse Unplugged.
Thank you very much.
A lot of people from the Alps, a lot of the ski community don't know about your truly remarkable upbringing and don't know where a lot of us former British ski racers come from. Born in Lancashire, far from the Alps, and raised in a completely different environment than most of your competitors. What do you remember about your first years on skis and what made that early environment for you feel like home, give you determination to go all the way?
Yeah, I guess I remember a lot from my early days on dry slope, and it was basically the only reason I started was to be allowed to go on a family ski holiday with my mum and dad. It was the cheapest way to learn. Going to the French Alps wasn't cheap to get instruction, so yeah, they put me into the ski school at Pendle Ski Club, and after a year of trekking up and down a 12-second long plastic bristled yard brush, whatever you want to call it, slope, I was deemed good enough to go on the family holiday. So that's where it all started, and had a lot of fun. I remember my first ski instructor there, Jeanette. She made it like it almost felt like I was on snow. I didn't know any better, but I loved going up there. I loved trying to get better at skiing, and yeah, I was going there until I was 21. Would you believe?
That's amazing. Now, your parents, Carl and Shirley, were central figures from the beginning, supporting you in a sport that wasn't exactly normal to pursue in Great Britain. How important were your mum and your dad in those early steps? And please tell our listeners and viewers that your dad is one hell of a coach.
Yeah, my dad probably from the age of 12 became the race team coach at Pendle. By then I'd progressed onto the race team and was going twice a week race training on the dry slope. So yeah, my dad became the coach there, and he had a great eye for what it was we were trying to achieve and how to get better at skiing. And we didn't really skip, I don't know how you say it really. We really focused on technique, and not many other people were doing that on dry slope. It was more about running gates and just going up there and smashing gates all night, which was fun. But we really took an approach that was different. And over the winter, because you race in the summer on dry slope, we wouldn't hit any gates. We'd just work on our technique, and that was really the stepping stone for the club as a whole. Really, we had a lot of success, and remember traveling around the country racing other clubs, and yeah, we became the most successful dry slope club for a few years, and that was cool for everyone up there.
Now I can hear one or two of our listeners, of our viewers, going, dry slope.
Yeah, I should probably talk about my mum as well, who was
Yes.
who was kind of like the rock. She was always base camp, and
Lovely.
obviously come away for the race weekends, and she would also either gate judge or whatever. So yeah, we traveled around the country as a family. My sister was also racing, so yeah, we had lots of fun. We used to camp at the weekends, race during the day, camp in the evening, and yeah, it was a great summer lifestyle.
And of course, your sister has become a very talented coach herself now, working with some of our best Paralympians.
Yeah.
Your dad was the coach. Your mum, I've met your mum a couple of times. She's a wonderful, wonderful lady. Just give us a little more detail of what this dry slope is, because I still get letters to this very day, people saying, what is it? How does it work? And what skills does it give you? But what does it also deny you when those important fundamental grounding years are on a dry slope?
Yeah. Well, I guess the best way to look is to just go on YouTube and look what's dry ski slope, or type in Dave Ryding plastic slope or something. But it's basically bristles in a diamond shape, and it's hard. They're probably about this long, and yeah, not much else to it. So yeah, you sharpen your edges like you would for snow. And we used really hard cold wax so the skis would stay cooler, because obviously friction means the skis get warm. You don't want that, it melts the base, etc., etc. So yeah, use cold wax, and yes, just rep slalom gates for 12 seconds each run. What it gave me, firstly, was the opportunity to ski race. I would never be where I am today without that opportunity to ski or to ski race. So that's the first thing. And then obviously dry slope is the surface is actually like, it's a closed skilled surface as such. It's not a closed skill, but it's a closed environment, because whereas snow is warm, cold, icy, aggressive, plastic is always the same. So we focused a lot on technique. So that really helped me when I eventually got skiing on snow. But what it was a disadvantage of was I didn't know all the other variables. I didn't know how to ski on salted snow. I didn't know how to ski on ice. I didn't know how to ski on steeps. So yeah, while I was learning a lot of skills, like the top of levee, I'm very fast because it's like dry slope. If all pieces were like that, I'd be a lot more successful. But that's also why it took me longer to get to the top 30 in Alpine racing, because I had to learn all these skills. I had to perfect my technique for all these different environments, and that takes time. So yeah, it was. I would never be here without it. Put it that way.
No, I'm with you all the way. I was a dry slope skier in the 80s at a Telford Ski Club. Everybody knows Telford Ski Club as well. And those shocks when I tried the snow for the first time were tough. But my point here is that we never, ever believed that we'd win a World Cup race. And here you are. And I've had the pleasure of commentating you. And like many of the dry slope skiers, you don't really hit the snow till later on in the game. You never skied or ski raced on the snow until 12,
13 or
13, something like that. And when I first went to the snow, I thought, jaw to the floor, you know, like, holy moly. You know, I remember seeing guys like Paolo de Chiesa and Ingemar Stenmark, Stig Strand. First and foremost, I couldn't believe how good they were. And then secondly, you talked about it. Sometimes you get an icy day in the office and you would go, what the hell?
I still sometimes do go, what the hell?
What the hell is this? How did it work for you, the transition? As you said earlier, was it a slow, hard work process? Or did you start to get the hang of it? A few conversations with Dad to speed up that process, because you were soon starting to make your mark.
Yeah, I guess it was a slow process. The first time I went on snow, I thought, this is awesome. I mean, compared to our plastic ski slope, skiing on snow is like skiing in the clouds. So it was amazing. But then obviously the ruts come, the steeps come, and it is kind of like eye-opening. And you don't know how you're even going to get from A to B. But yeah, a slow process to improve, and a methodical approach from my older coach, Tristan Glass-Davis, who just decided we were going to work on technique, particularly after I won the Europa Cup and didn't score any World Cup points after that year. We decided, right, well, I'm obviously breaking down on the harder piece, the icier piece, so we need to improve technically. And from then we started doing a lot of indoor training. And at that point, no one really did much indoor training. Again, for me, it's way better than dry slope. So I didn't mind going into the ski hall for like 4 hours a day, 3 weeks in a row. That was still like normal anyway. So it was definitely a methodical process to improve. And I never really dreamed, to be honest, of winning a World Cup. That only became realistic sort of in my early 30s, when people like Marcel had already retired. So, you know, it was definitely a different way, but just shows, like, if you give yourself time, too many people retire too early, I believe, or aren't given the chance by federations. I was always able to have the chance to keep getting better, fortunately. When I first came to FIS, people, anyone who knows FIS points, but people don't really know, but I was, what you'd say is terrible. The first year in FIS, I did 3 races, slalom, a GS, and a Super G, and my best result was 247.
That's points.
Yeah, points. I was about 34 seconds off the winner, and yeah, I thought I was good. So I decided I'd have another go the next year where I did 4 races. Thankfully did a bit better. But yeah, I was in the first year going to FIS. I looked back and I looked at how many people my year of birth, 1986, went into FIS that year, and where was I ranked? And out of the 20 guys that were on FIS, like, where do you think I was ranked out of the 20 guys of Brits, not the world?
I daren't say.
I was 18th.
Wow.
Yeah, I was third last in my year of birth going in after the first year of FIS in Britain. So
Yes.
if you can imagine where that was in the world,
Yeah, tough.
it was if I look back now, I think, what the hell were you thinking? Because yeah, it's a hell of a long way to go. But yeah, I managed it, which was
It's a fantastic journey because you did something that so many British skiers have tried. Some have come close, but you actually cracked it. So when you were going through these formative years, who were your idols? Who did you want to ski like? And did you feel that you were always playing catch up? You were always going to be a late developer?
I mean, when I was coming through, I didn't really know where I was. I was a bit oblivious to the whole thing. I was never in the British children's team. I never went to the World Juniors. I was never good enough. So I was just focused on myself. And if I could keep improving, then I was still going to give it a shot. But like any other British skier, I was always, yeah, mesmerized by the best of the generation before me. And I remember obviously watching Alan in 2002 at Salt Lake City, and that I really felt a fire inside me light, and I can still remember watching it, feeling the emotion. And I really think that was a big part of something. I don't know what it was, but I do remember that emotion, and I think it, yeah, gave me a lot to have a go. And yeah, it's I remember the bells as well.
Yeah.
When I had a plastic camp on a dry slope camp with Martin, mesmerized that it was Martin Bell. So yeah, like anyone else, you look up to the generation before you.
And Alan Baxter came so close. I mean, I think his PB was 5th or 4th at the
Yeah.
World Cup finals in order. I remember
Yeah.
commentating it.
Yeah.
And now Alan's coaching you as well.
Yeah.
Does that add to your motivation, the inspiration of Alan Baxter?
Yeah, exactly. The amazing thing with Alan is he knows what I'm feeling. So if I'm doubting myself or anything like that, he's just such a reassuring figure for me that I can turn to him. He'll just reassure me, and then I'll go about my business. And then obviously off the snow and everything, we talk about skiing, etc., etc. So it's just good that someone understands the game, understands the mind. And before, he'll probably look at me and think maybe I'm feeling a bit nervous or whatever, and just a reassuring. It can be 2 words.
Yeah.
But he knows what those words are, and that's a really big factor. Yeah.
What words did you two use to each other when you beat him in the British Championships in 2008?
Yeah, my first British championship. I'm too respectful to give any of that. You won't catch me saying anything to Alan. It's funny, like, obviously I've had my career and I've gone on to do amazing things, but for me, you never lose that play. You never lose that place of the people before you, and I'll never lose that sort of respect and whatever it is I have for Alan. That will never change. So yeah, it was just it's a fun, race. It's probably the last race he wanted to do at that time, like it is for me now, which is why I don't tend to go. But yeah, it was a big step for me doing that at the time, and obviously it's a big scalp. But yeah, it was never going to be anything that I thought too much about. It was just a good day in the office for myself.
Amazing story about Carl. Amazing story about Shirley. You can't get away from Alan Baxter. But let's move on to part 2, which we've called on our script here, The Grind. The Europa Cup years, funding cuts, and British resilience. So, for all of our listeners and viewers, again, you won the Europa Cup slalom title 2013. That is massive for a British skier. Absolutely. First time ever. And Britain is starting to think, woo, something could be happening here. What changed for you after claiming that Europa Cup Tour title? Not a one-off victory, but the Europa Cup slalom champion for the season.
I think it was the realization that I was moving in the right direction, and I still remember standing at the finish, And it was Matthias Hagen who I was actually competing against, who was already in the top 10 in the world. But back then, it seemed like every World Cup skier still did the Europa Cup from time to time. It's not quite the same now, but I remember that moment that I realised I'd won, thinking, crikey, I've won the Europa Cup title. I didn't actually win a race, but classic Dave being consistent as ever, I managed to get the title. So, yeah, it was a big reassurance to me. It was still, as it turned out, a long way to go for me to make that next step. And the next season was actually really tough. I was still second the next season in the Europa Cup, but like I said, no World Cup points. So, yeah, it was a realization that something had to change. And that came from Tristan, my coach for 15 years, who was like, right, we've got to change something, and we've got to change it now.
And it was a tough year. I mean, there were injury struggles, there were financial struggles, limited support, funding cuts, crowdfunding, and the results weren't coming. But you never stopped believing. And I think that's such a valuable part of the Dave Ryding stories, because we've had Europa Cup winners before. We've had the Bell brothers do the business in the top 10 on World Cup before. Was there ever a point when you come off the back of that high point of being the Europa Cup champion, and when it didn't work, that you thought, maybe I'm not going to be a World Cupper?
Yeah, so yeah, it was a big part of my career is the grit, and a big part of my career is always doing the best I can with what I've got. I've never had a big team around me because we just don't have the financial resources for that. But I've never looked at it as a kind of, it is a bit of a disadvantage, but I never looked at it as a hurdle. It was just a hurdle, not a wall. And I tuned my own skis till I was 28. So I've tuned my own skis for a 12th in the World Cup. So yeah, I've definitely had to do it the hard way. But there was a time when I almost stopped, and that was 2015. And my dream as a kid was just to be ranked in the top 30. And in 2015, I finished the season ranked 31st on the World Cup start list, 1 point off the top 30. So obviously you lose out on sponsorship deals from your ski brand, etc., etc. So, and that year I'd done 198 ski days, not days away, days on snow. We'd gone like all in, like you could not believe. And I remember I finished 31st on the Saturday or whatever day it was, and the next day was the Europa Cup finals. I had an 84-point lead. I lost that. The guy that was second tied first, and I had my worst result of the season. I was just emotionally done. And I remember going home thinking, I was already like 27 at this time, obviously, 28. So I went home and I thought, I literally cannot go more all in than that. I can't go more all in. And I don't know what I was like to my parents, but I was still living at home. I wasn't making money. So I remember going to my room, and I remember being in my room a lot that week. But one thing that was always there was my phone with Tristan saying, come on, don't feel too bad. We'll get back out there. And I was just like, I don't even want to think about skiing. After a week, he managed to get me back out on snow. And it wasn't great when I got back out there, but I was on snow. It was a tough time, but from the next season, thankfully, I think 2 people retired. So I started the first race, which happened to be Val d'Isère. I think somewhere got cancelled before it, maybe Levy. And I remember walking over to get my skis in the morning. I think it was bib 28. And I was thinking, no one is going to take me out of this top 30 for the love of like God. I'm staying in this 30 if it's the last thing I do. And thankfully from that day, I was 12th that day, my best ever result. And from there, I got the ball rolling. So that week where I'd gone home was really crucial. And thankfully, I had someone who was badgering me to get back out there. And in the end, I did.
Is this statement true from Tristan? He says, we built Dave from the left foot up.
Yeah, it probably is. That's basically where we started after in about 2014, 2015. I had a really good right foot turn. My left foot turn, I did it all with like rotation.
Yeah.
So we just had to break it down, doing hours indoors, working on technique, slow skiing, not hitting gates, like carved skiing. And yeah, we definitely did that.
We rebuilt it. Now the story starts to get sexy. Here we go. 2017, first World Cup podium in Kitzbühel. becoming only the second British man since Conrad in 1981 to make the podium. I commentated it. I nearly peed my pants in the chair, I have to admit. Tears of joy with Finlay Mickle and I in the commentary box. It was remarkable. How much of that day do you remember, Dave?
I remember it a lot. I remember all of it, to be honest. I slept like rubbish, had a terrible night's sleep because I never finished Kitzbühel before that year. I remember in the lead up to it, I thought, right, who was winning the first run last year? And I'm going to watch him. And it was Fritz Dopfer.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I watched Fritz Dopfer a lot, like coming through. It was like Fritz Dopfer, Hemrick, and Horoshalov. They were the three guys I watched and based a lot off. So I was like, okay, what was he doing? So I just studied Fritz's run. And I thought, okay, all I'm doing today is getting as many points as I can. If that's 4, then great. If I walk out of here with some points, it's a big step forward because I've never finished here before. Obviously, then I go down the first run and I'm winning.
Yep.
I'm like, now I'm in the deep end. But you know the funny thing? I remember leaving the finish area after done a few TV interviews, etc. And I had a flashback to the first dry slope race. I was leading. And I had the same emotion walking away from the finish in a place called, where was it? Hemel, which is now a snow slope. I've had the same feeling walking away in Hemel as I was walking out of Kitzbühel, and I just had to laugh because it's a slightly different stage, a lot more on the line. But thankfully, I never lost my focus on just getting to the finish.
Yeah, I mean, that was the thing.
Yeah.
I'm in the commentary box. He's going to bottle this.
Yeah.
You know, and of course, it's you and Marcel toe to toe.
Yeah.
Going after it.
I watched Marcel's run and I thought, I'm not going to beat that. Honestly.
Really?
Yeah. He was in 9th. He was in a big battle that year with Hemrick, but Hemrick had come out. And Marcel was in 9th. And he said afterwards it was a big help that Hemrick wasn't there because it meant he could go all in. I don't think you'll see a better run down Kitzbühel maybe than that day that he pulled off, obviously to my detriment. But I remember thinking, I don't think I'll beat that. So, yeah. And then Stefano Gross was in 2nd. He went out early. So I thought, okay, it's time to go. But then they held me for 2.5 minutes for the whole build. It was, looking back, it was switching between Marcel, me. And yeah, I just managed to hold my focus the whole way.
I mean, hold your nerve was quite remarkable.
Yeah.
Hirscher having had that second run flyer that everybody loved.
Yeah.
And then here's Dave Ryding. And, you know, I've got commentators sending me to, where's he born? Where's he from? What's he do? What people needing information. But that second run, for me, somebody who's followed you through all of your career, then we realize that you've got that focus, that you've got that ability to zone in and make it happen. You teed it up on the first run, but boy, oh boy, did you smash it on the second. Did you get the same feeling yourself, knowing that you're in the play, you're ready to mix it with the big boys?
To be honest, I think it was just all so much to take in. I didn't even think too much about that.
Yeah.
It was just I remember standing on the podium thinking, what am I doing here? In Kitzbühel of all places. And yeah, it was an amazing day, obviously, and something that I'd never thought when I was young. I never even thought of.
I did an interview with Marcel Hirscher a week later, and with his dad Ferdinand, you know, standing by. And I said, "Thank you, Marcel." We finished the interview, and his dad Ferdinand says, "Come over here, come over here." And he said, "Tell me about these dry ski slopes." And I went, "Well, you know, toothbrushes, flat. You know, we all learn to ski on them. Do you think Marcel needs to go and learn to ski on the dry ski slope?" And I hear it's a true story. Hirscher was starting to think the only skill that was missing was the skills that you had from the dry slope. And he was thinking of going to train somewhere on a dry slope.
I mean, his dad was a coach on plastic in the Netherlands, right? Because his mum's Dutch. Obviously, everyone knows that.
Yeah.
But Ferdinand used to instruct on the dry slope sometimes. So he kind of knew what it was. And he said to me, I always thought it was possible to go far while learning on dry slope. So, and Marcel was, I think one of Marcel's quotes was, we normally use those plastic bristles as doormats and wipe our feet before we go inside, not ski on them. So it was nice to hear because obviously Marcel is, well, I don't know how many, 68 races or something. And so any kind word that he says means a lot.
Yes.
So that was really,
No, they really
nice.
thought it was a secret skill that they didn't have,
Yeah.
which was, I thought, great for you. Then came Oslo, then came Adelboden, then came Garmisch. Yoo-hoo, we're in the game. Dave Ryding is not only a British superstar, but now an international ski racing star. What was it that clicked in those years to find that key to success that we all know on the World Cup Tour? Consistency.
Yeah, I think I've always had consistency, ever from my dry slope days. I was always consistent. It's just obviously something in my personality. I'm slightly risk averse. I'm slightly like tactics, etc. Which sometimes like I over maybe use tactics. I'm not the kind of guy that's going to go from gate 1 to gate 75 at full risk. I'm gonna use tactics, which is what paid off when I did win. But it was just that resilience and willingness. It's the willingness to turn up when you don't feel your best, but do your best. And that might mean in my early days getting a 24th, not 31st, and missing the points. And it's now willing to take a 15th and move on to the next race where you go on to do a podium or something. So it's just that willingness that I have to put out whatever I have, never shy away from, maybe today I don't feel good and maybe I'll do rubbish. That's okay. Just do what you can. And that's still the mindset I have today. And it's still what I'm trying to do every race, and get in the zone and just give it my all.
Those are wise words, and wise words that have served you well, Dave, to be honest. You've teed it up again. This is part 3. Please stay with me. The day everything changed. 2022, Kitzbühel, the day you made history. 35, oldest ever first-time World Cup winner. One of the stats that started getting thrown around. No Brit ever won a World Cup race, and you did it on the most iconic, I would say, unforgiving slalom piste on the tour. What was going through your mind at the start gate? You knew you'd come so close before. How do you go back there and make that little bit of difference to take it from second position 5 years later to the win?
Marcel retired 2 years. No, I'm joking. It's just about turning up again, and on that day it was extremely difficult. It was snowing because they put the slalom on the Saturday because of a snowstorm, so the downhill could take place on the Sunday. All my podiums in Kitzbühel have been on the 22nd of January. It was on the 22nd again, obviously.
Wow.
That's a funny stat that they reminded me of in Kitzbühel when I got my gondola. But no, it's just about, it was very icy. The second run in particular was very tricky, and that plays to my strengths. And I use tactics again, and I'm really good at reading rolls and absorbing rolls, and you really had to do that on the second run. And I remember before the first sharp roll, I put a little bit of a speed check drift in, and some people thought, oh, he's like made a mistake, but that was me just knowing that I had to nail this roll to carry the speed into the next section. And I stepped up and had 2 really solid runs and got it done somehow.
I mean, you'll be able to see the commentary that I made of Dave's performance. I mean, it was just remarkable. But this time, when you realized you won, did you manage to take in some feelings? Did you manage the joy, or was it disbelief, relief that you'd finally cracked it? What were the emotions this second time around?
Yeah, I remember obviously waiting at the bottom, and it was Vinatsa at the start, and I was at the bottom, and I was thinking, on this day, it was kind of like Hirscher at the bottom, me at the start, and I was like, on this day, I'd much rather be standing at the bottom rather than at the top in a snowstorm on the biggest race of the season. And unfortunately for Alex, he went out pretty early on. And I remember when I crossed the line in 2017, Marcel, before he celebrated, came to congratulate me. And that for me was like a huge respectful moment. So rather than like celebrating someone else's adversity, I kind of wanted to say my condolences and then celebrate more, because that's what Marcel did to me, and I kind of like respected that moment. And then it was kind of disbelief. I think Henrik was celebrating for me more than I was at the time. I was in a bit of shock. And on the podium, then I remember obviously the national anthem, but what came to me the most was thinking about everyone that had helped me, supported me, coached me from when I was a kid. And I just thought, you know what, all those people who helped me in the early days, and now I showed that it was worth it, and I showed that I could do it, and that was the biggest thing I took from standing on the podium. And I'm glad that I did it for them just as much as I did it for myself. But I definitely took it in. I'm glad. I'm a bit gutted. Schladming was a few days later because I wasn't up for that one. I was done.
You would. Did that victory change how you saw yourself? Because it certainly changed how the world saw you.
Not really. I think I it didn't. It got me more respect. I felt the respect from the world went up another notch, like it did with my first podium. That was for sure. It didn't really change me though. I went back to and tried to be better the next day than I was the day before, like I'd always done. And I think I will only truly realize what I've achieved when I finish, because my personality is just, I'm obsessed with the process, with the consistency day to day, and I don't always think about like what I've done. And because I think if you spend too much time thinking, you get whooped pretty quickly. So yeah, I really kept my foot on the training button, and I think after my career, I will probably take it in more than I have done so far.
And you said that Kitzbühel is the closest thing to magic in your career. What did that mean? Why would you say that?
I can't remember saying that, to be honest. I'll have said it somewhere, but no, I think you know what Kitzbühel's like. It's as soon as you arrive in Kitzbühel, and I think obviously the history of the downhill as well, comes into play, but you just realize the history of the place. You realize you're just there, and everything is a notch above. The fans are intense, the bib draw's intense, the everything about it. You're in Kitzbühel. The prize money is more as well. Maybe why I step up, because I'm from the north and we'll do anything for a bob or two. Yeah, it's just it's the place where I've had a lot of success racing. I don't know why, but it has been. Gurgle's only just come on the calendar, so it's kind of a bit newer to me. But when I was coming through, and you always saw the trophies, you always saw the Gamps, and I was always like, oh, if there's one trophy, that's the one to get. Yeah, I've got 3 of them on my dining room, side table or whatever. So,
and then I asked this a lot of performers, that first victory, particularly from a small nation like Great Britain, did it add weight to your shoulders in the races after and the seasons after? Being a Kitzbühel winner carries a lot of responsibility.
Yeah, it added a lot of weight because the Olympics were 3 weeks later.
Yeah.
And in that sense, it was probably the worst time to win a race. Because one thing I never, ever saw coming or could plan for was, obviously, it's such a high. But when you've tried to do something until you're 35 and you actually manage to do it, they come down after it, and the sort of rush of emotion from my body and energy was huge. And I remember flying out to the Olympics, and obviously it's in China, in COVID, no one around. You couldn't do anything other than stay in that bubble. Yes. I was pretty drained. And it was probably the last race I wanted to do at that time. I remember I had a podium the weekend after, but at the Olympics, I was a little bit too mentally exhausted, really, to do what I would say my best skiing. But yeah,
you've inspired British skiing. All of a sudden, in my day, in the 80s, if you got to the Europa Cup, you'd had a big breakthrough. Yeah. If you won a FIS race, we all celebrated like we'd won. You've raised the game. And now British skiing and the British team is growing. Laurie Taylor, Billy Major coming strong, all off the back of your success. Do you see your Kitzbühel win as something that helped open the door for them and open the door for future generations? Because there's another young crop of sharpshooters called the Carrick-Smith boys, and I believe there's another crop after them as well, all because of Dave Ryding won Kitzbühel. Is that a fair statement?
The one thing I can say, I don't know if the win was totally that, but one thing I can say from my career is the next generation and kids today in Britain talk about podiums as if they're normal. And I still have to laugh because I still look at the podiums as if they're like this holy grail from when I was growing up. So one thing I can definitely say is Britain believes in podiums, and I think we will get more podiums in the coming years. Like you say, the next generation is really good, even beside the names you mentioned. And I really think that win broke a ceiling. That's what it certainly felt like to me. I've been smashing my head against the brick wall for so long, leading halfway down Levy on the second run. I was actually leading the last split in Madonna one year, made a mistake. So I was beginning to think I'd lost my chances, to be honest. But when I did that, I really felt like a ceiling had been smashed. And I think it will definitely help the next generation to go on to greater things.
Yeah, no, great words, Dave. I truly believe that Kitzbühel win means that Great Britain will find more winners on the World Cup tour. It's all down to you. Thank you. I want to move on to the next point of this podcast. It's called Icy Slope. Well, we have someone who knows you well, respects you deeply, and we've asked them to send in a few questions for you on the telephone. And
Oh, crikey.
here we go. I'm not saying anymore. If you could tell us who the person is, what he means to you. It's a he. There you go. I've given that bit away. And then we'll leave this person to ask you a couple of questions.
Okay. Now it could be anything.
Who is it?
It's Mark Quinn of Quinn Estates, a sponsor of mine since 2017 season. He came to the first Kitzbühel podium, so he's been there through all my podiums. So yeah, a loyal supporter. Let's put it that way.
Let's see what he has to say.
Hi Dave, I know you're being interviewed by a friend of mine and a legend, Nick Fellows, a fellow legend. And I just wanted to pose a couple of questions to you. The first is, what career are you going to do when you retire from skiing? I know that I know. And the second question I'd like Nick to ask you is, what did you do once in a restaurant in London, Haggersan, in order to get me to sponsor a skier? Love you. Hope you have a fantastic season. Hope you get everything that you want out of it, and I hope you guys have a lovely time there. God bless. Take care.
Classic. Yeah, what do I plan to do after skiing? Well, one thing that, I during my career, me and my wife, we ran a cafe for 4 years. We sold it because my daughter came along, and I decided I was still going to ski into my late 30s, and it was a bit hard to be a single mom and a cafe owner. So, but one thing I realized is I know way more about ski racing than I do a lot of things. So yeah, I want to definitely stay involved in the sport. I think even already this season, and maybe soon, maybe this is the perfect time to do it, but I want to go into, say, some kind of sports mentorship, sports coaching. I need to combine it with family life, because living in the UK, being away so much is not fair on my family after my sporting career. So if I can do some kind of mentorship and coaching, certainly in the years straight after skiing, and give my knowledge to the next generation, then that's something that I will definitely do. I might have a dabble in the old, maybe not the lead commentator role, because I don't think I've got the skills for that. I might have a dabble on the commentary side, because I really enjoy interacting with the other racers. I know them so well, and I think I could bring definitely some kind of vibe to the races. But yeah, I'll dabble in a few things. I don't want to rush into something and 6 months down the line think this is not for me. So definitely dabble in a few things, 100% stay in the sport with some kind of mentorship coaching role, and take it from there, really, while being a dad and a husband. I think that's the most important thing, because my family don't always think of it, but when I'm away in the winter, I'm away for 4 and a bit weeks. I go home for 5 days, and then I'm away for another 4 weeks until Christmas. So yeah, I'm certainly away too much for my liking. My daughter starts school next year, so that's one of the reasons why it's time to hang up the boots before the boots leave me. Jamie Carragher in football always said, "Leave football before football leaves me. Before football leaves you." So I'll try and leave skiing before the legs fall off, is what I say.
It's one of those answers where I can see Mandy and Nina at home going,
Yeah.
that is the correct answer,
I think
Daddy.
she'll kick me out of the house after a few months though, because it might be a bit too intense with me twiddling my thumbs around the office or something. But yeah, and then what did I do in a restaurant in London? I think it was after the first year Mark had sponsored me. He was going to sponsor another athlete, but before he would do it, he made me do some, in true Mark style. This was after the season, in my off time. I'm not doing this all the time. I had to do a few shots for this poor girl to get her sponsorship. So, you can't really turn that down and be a mouse on the evening. So I had to step up and sink a few shots in the for the benefit of other skiers. So, yeah, I was happy to do that.
Mark Quinn, thank you very much. He is a legend, contributing over millions of pounds, not only to Dave Ryding, but for many British skiers to give them the opportunity to race on the World Cup Tour. Good answers, Dave. Really like those. Very good. Let's move on. So the craft, the mind, the future is what we've called this next point, Dave. And this is our last part before we'll finish off with a bit of rapid fire.
Sure.
You're known for being meticulous, technically sharp, mentally tough. How would you describe your approach to the craft of skiing?
My approach, I would say it's very technical base, never skipping corners, never missing sessions, whether that's on snow or off snow, and going all in. I think just pure dedication to the sport, all in. My life now is only skiing, obviously being a dad as well, but yeah, my gym is in my garage. I go on the bike with the local club. I do 5K races every weekend at the local park run. So yeah, my life is about skiing. I made that my life, and that's why I've had the success I've had.
It's important for the youngsters to realize that when you do go from being an amateur to a pro like yourself, it is 12 months of the year, literally.
Yeah, it's literally, and 24 hours a day. You go to bed thinking I need to get to sleep. You wake up thinking, how did I sleep, and how do my legs feel, and what am I having for breakfast, and then what's my first session, yada yada yada. And that's every day of the year. And if you're not willing to do that, then you're at a less chance of succeeding.
Great words. People often say you're a race day competitor, that when it matters most, you deliver something extra. Is that something that you agree with? And are there any tips that you can give the young rising stars out there to achieve that focus that you have on game day?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that, in the sense that I always step up with what I've got. And especially now as I've got older, then I'm definitely more orientated about the race day than maybe the training in the lead up, because it's almost impossible to train all week fast and race at the weekend fresh and fast. So I have to accept certain days I'm off the pace in training, etc. Then I know that on, say, a Sunday or whatever day we race, that's when I have to step up, and that's when I just have to go all in on the day for that period. And it goes back to what we said earlier. It's about doing your best every single day, whether you feel good, bad, or whatever. And you quite often surprise yourself when you're feeling bad and do well anyway. So turning up and giving it your all, and being methodical with everything, inspection, warm up, the lot.
Tuning in, kids, keep listening, keep taking notes, watch again if you didn't get it first time. Now, here's the bad bit of the story. You're entering your final season. You've publicly stated this is it, no matter what happens. How does that treat your mindset? How does that make you feel, still knowing how much work you've got to put in to bow out in style?
Yeah, I think firstly, since the last Olympics, it's been impossible to think in a 4-year cycle like you kind of do before, because I was already 35. I honestly didn't expect to be at this Olympics. I thought 39 was never going to happen. It hadn't really been done before. So I decided to take it year by year. And by doing that, I could commit fully for that year, reassess, and then go again. And now coming to this year, I turned 39 in 2 weeks. I think the whys of why it is the right time now outweigh the whys of being a ski racer. And that doesn't just come from like results. It comes from like accepting that I'm getting older, understanding my body, but understanding I can still get a lot out of myself, but knowing that I'm not in my prime anymore, I can feel that. And obviously family. I'm ready for a new challenge. I'm ready to wake up in the morning and get after something else. I really feel that, and that's why I know it's the right time. But putting that finish line gives me a point to work to. I'm not the kind of guy that will take my foot off the gas right until that point. And so this year I'll be hoping to do better if I can at every single race than I've done before, and going all in like I always have.
What are you most proud of? And do you have any regrets through this amazing career and story?
Yeah, I think I'm most proud about, obviously, the longevity. Doing things, obviously, I've done things that no other Brit's done before, but now I've also done things with skiing as an older ski racer. I've done things that nobody in the world has ever done before by winning at 35. I don't know if that was top 10 was the oldest ever top 10, but these sort of stats, they really motivate me, and showing that, yeah, I wasn't so good when I was young, but when I was old, I was really good. So yeah, I think my legacy is definitely obviously winning, but also then having the results I've had until now, almost 39. As far as regrets, I don't really have any. Obviously, people say like, "Oh, how good could you have been if you'd been exposed to snow and skiing more when you were a kid?" And yes, of course, it may have been a different story, but that's not me. That's not my story, and my story's so unique that I'm really proud of it. So, yeah, no real regrets. Sitting here, I can't think of any. There's probably a few things that I've done wrong, but so's everyone. No, I've had a great career, and I'm happy with everything.
No, I've loved every minute, I have to admit. Let's finish off with rapid fire. It's like a ping pong match. First thing that comes into your mind, fast as we can do it.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm old and my mind's a bit slower. So,
well, you want to sit on this side of the table? There's a slower mind than somebody that's old. Here we go, Dave.
Yeah.
Kitzbühel or Schladming?
Kitzbühel.
The best James Bond?
No idea.
No idea. Okay, sorry about that, 007. He didn't make the cut this
The
week.
one that was in Gurgle or wherever.
Loic Meillard, he's the best James Bond. That's
Yeah.
what I call him, the Swiss James Bond.
Fair play.
Cinema with the kids or a powder day?
Oh, the kids.
Easy.
I've only got one, but kid.
Yeah, kid. Early morning gym or late afternoon training?
Early morning gym.
Left foot turn or right foot turn?
Right foot all day.
I know that. Best advice Alan Baxter ever gave you?
Just a shoulder to lean on.
Worst advice you've ever been given?
Dry slope skiers can't make it on snow.
Hardest course on the circuit?
Kostelic. Olympics, Sochi 2014, closely followed by Tristan's in Garmisch.
Favorite training partner?
Oh, the boys. And Horoshlov. I did a lot with Horoshlov.
One word to describe British ski culture?
Passion.
Globes or medals?
Oh, I'm a globe man.
You'd be surprised how many people say that.
Yeah.
You really would be. Your last big dream in the sport?
One more podium, but to be competitive.
Best teammate you've ever had?
I can't say that.
No, because there's two of them.
Too much respect.
Yeah, I give you that one. Best rival you've ever faced?
One of my best friends on tour is probably also, I think he would say the same, Daniel Yule.
Yeah. New skis this season as well.
Yep.
Yeah. Biggest fear on the mountain?
Fear of failure.
Harry Kane or Wayne Rooney?
Stevie Gerrard, but
Well, that would have been too easy, wouldn't it?
it's got to be Harry Kane. It's got to be Harry Kane.
The GOAT. Beckham, Shearer, Gerrard, Lampard, Rooney, Kane. Pick one greatest of all time.
Gerrard.
I knew you'd say that. Most underrated skill in skiing?
The start.
Most overrated skill in skiing?
I don't know. You're all in pole plant. No, don't. No idea.
The podium you're most proud of, besides Kitzbühel?
Adelboden.
That was brilliant, that was. Quiet night in Lancashire or a big night in Kitzbühel?
Ooh, I'll have to go Kitzbühel. I've not experienced it yet.
Okay.
They tell me free drinks in the Londoner for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I'll be there.
Now, for those of you that know Dave Ryding, you're going to be screaming at your radio, podcast, platform, whichever it may be. But I've got to ask it. Best football team, Liverpool or Manchester?
Oh, come on. There's no doubt.
There's no
Liverpool.
doubt. What annoys you the most in ski rooms?
The smell of machines.
What annoys you the most when sharing a room?
To be honest, I get privileged, and the younger boys share the room, and they quite often let me have the single room.
Because
So
there's 3 of them on the team to give a
Yeah.
little more detail there.
snoring would be the worst.
The questions journalists should stop asking.
Why did you get into skiing?
The question you wish someone would finally ask you.
I really don't know. Mind blank.
And one last question. What does it feel like to have your name written on a Kitzbühel bubble?
A dream come true. I've always fancied it, so to have it is really a dream come true, and seeing it is really special.
Maybe you'll take Nina in it one day.
She's been in it multiple times. Don't worry.
That's great that you
2 hours in a row. No, I'm joking.
This is my dad's bubble.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Dave, thank you for your honesty,
Thank you.
humour, and resilience today. Your story proves that greatness can come from anywhere, even from a small village in Lancashire.
Thank you.
Dave Ryding, we wish you the best of luck this season. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us. Subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and all the platforms for more stories and athletes from the Audi FIS Ski World Cup. From Dave Ryding and myself, Nick Fellows, many thanks for your company. It's goodbye for now. Alpine Pulse is an official podcast of the FIS, produced by Maniac Studios.